Hi everyone, your pieces will be 2 cuffs, 2 fronts, 2 backs, 2 pockets, 1 yoke, and your binding. Mine's white. So let's get started. First, you're going to lay out your front pieces. You're going to apply your binding to the pocket edge right sides together. I like to prep everything that I'm going to serge at once so that I can serge seamlessly. So if you see here, I'm folding my cuff in half the long way and then again the short way, and I'm going to serge parallel to the grain lines. Next, I'm going to line up my back pieces and sew only the crotch. Prepping everything at once makes it easier for me to serge everything. So I'll start with applying the binding right sides together on the pocket. If you notice, I don't pin my binding because I like to feel how much I'm pulling. I'm slightly pulling the binding piece as I go around the curve of the pocket. Next, I'm serging the back pieces down the crotch. Next, I put in the cuffs and I'm sewing one seam that's parallel to the grain line. Once that's done, I'm going to grab my pocket piece and flip the binding over. I like my binding to be a little thicker than most, so I cut my strip 1/8 thicker than what's specified, and I line the edge up to the inside of my serge seam. I tried to get a close-up to show there, but I do the same to both sides. Pin carefully before I take it to the cover stitch. Here I'm going slow and I'm just feeding through, making sure the binding stays in place. Don't forget or be scared to go as slow as you need. This is totally sped up. I don't work this fast, so don't be discouraged. We'll do the same to the other side. Now that we have our binding on, we're going to turn our pant piece right side down, and we're going to put our pocket piece on top of it right side down, like so. You're going to make sure the straight edges line up and clip in place. I usually don't use pins, but since it's this pretty sharp curve, I opted to use pins this time. Do the same for the other side, matching up the straight edges and pinning in place. Now I wanted the decorative stitch on the right side, so I'm sewing from the wrong side. This is just a personal preference. I've seen some with the pretty stitching out, and then either one, it's just a style preference. What you can see here is my left needle. I guess I didn't sit my thread well enough because you can see some of that white thread, but I'm okay with it. I have white binding, so I'm gonna roll with it. Take my time around the curves. And those are done. Now that I've got that done, I'm gonna lay them right sides together and sew the crotch seam. Next, I'm gonna prep my back piece. Go ahead and line up the back piece like so it makes one perfect little rainbow. Remember that you want to put these on right sides together. So what I do is just mark the center of the yoke, pin that, flip that back, and pin that right sides together to the center of the pant. Then I pin the sides, and it feels a little wonky at first because you feel like the curves should match up. But they will match up once you've sewn it on. You just have to pin it this way to get it there. Go ahead and take that through your serger. Go as slow as you need to. And then I'm grabbing my front pieces that I had prepped before, and I'm just sewing the crotch together. Now that that's together, I'm gonna grab my back piece that has the yoke on it now. I'm gonna pin the crotch seams together and the lower legs together. I usually sew the inside first, but you can do the outside first. Either way, you'll get the same result. Now, if you notice, I use very few pins or clips, but you pin and clip as you deem necessary. French Terry is pretty forgiving to work with, so I'm usually pretty safe without using a lot of clips. So for the outside, you just want to make sure that when you're gonna serge over the pocket piece, notice that there's 3 layers to catch. So I just did a quick close-up to make sure that you pay attention to those 3 layers. Go ahead and pin the other side, that way you can stitch these pants up. Again, making sure you catch those 3 layers and sew down the side seam. Flip it over and do the other side. Once that's done, go ahead and flip out right sides your cuffs that you serged earlier. I take the cuffs and line the seam up with the inside seam of the pant leg. And then I usually just pull and pin on the other side because I serge over the connecting seams first to make sure that those line up. So I'm going to sew over the seams first because I care mostly about those lining up because I'm kind of OCD. Go ahead and repeat for the other side. And remember, go as slow as you need to. This is sped up, I think like 400 speed, so definitely take your time. Now that that's done, you're going to grab your elastic, and I pin in quarters. So I pin the sides, match up what I just pinned, and then do the other sides. I made my life pretty difficult in this part because the pattern, I wanted to use 1.25 inch elastic, and the elastic I had on hand isn't very stretchy, which made my life a lot harder, so I probably should have just stuck to my 1 inch. When I'm serging this elastic on, I'm pulling where I have my clips together. I'm pulling so that the fabric and the elastic lay flat. I'm not overstretching by any means. I'm just pulling until I get the fabric underneath to lie flat. Notice how I use my left hand to support the elastic so that all the tension is not on my needles. Now that I've done that, I flip the elastic inward because I'm going to top stitch. I also pin or clip in quarters for top stitching because I want to make sure my fabric doesn't move over. Since the pockets there's binding is a little thicker, I'm going to go ahead and place some clips there as well. I like to pull the elastic to make sure I get even bunching. I'm gonna top stitch the elastic the same way I added the elastic. My left hand, I'm using my pointer and my middle finger to pull the elastic in the front to hold the tension there. The last thing I want is to pull the elastic back and have that tension be on my needles and cause my needles to break. So I work in small pieces, pulling in the front and pulling in the back. I'm not overstretching just until I get it to lie flat. Now that I'm done, I'm going to turn them over and enjoy my make. I didn't add a drawstring to this one, but you absolutely can if you wish. Thanks guys, let me know if you have any questions.